So I'm Ben Curry and my company is called Electrical Innovations. We're solar installers based in Derby. We do electrical, solar, battery storage, EVs, and we look after all our customers local to the office. We cover most of the Midlands and we even go a little bit further afield for the odd project now and again. But most of the time you can find us in Derby doing solar, PV, battery, EV, and general electrical for all our regular customers. We're a family-run business with a great team of engineers who all work directly for us, so we're not going to get subcontractors turning up at the property. It's all done in-house, everything start to finish. So we also provide all the best materials, system specs, warranties, guarantees. We're MCS accredited, NIC approved. So when you come to us, you're getting the full package and we handle everything start to finish, from first inquiry to handover. You're going to be dealing with us and a member of our team directly. When you're looking for a solar PV system on your home, whether it's a really big system like this one or a smaller system or anything in between, the number one most important thing is finding the right installation company. Now the reason for that is all of these products are available to everyone out there who wants to fit them, and it's how you bring them together, how you install them, how you ensure the investment into your property is going to last, and that's the important key to the whole system. And finding an installer and a company to handle that for you, that's the number one most important thing in my opinion. So when we get into the details of this system, we're going to talk about how the customer found us and why they worked with us, and how we were able to make sure everything ran smoothly and there was just no bumps in the process. And hopefully during this video we're going to be able to demonstrate all that to you. So let's talk about what was involved in the spec of the system, both from our point of view and what the customer wanted when they came to us. So it was always going to be a big system at this property because they've got a high energy usage, they've got an EV, they've got an immersion cylinder to be able to heat hot water, they've got a very large roof at the back of the property as well. So having a big system that could cope with all that, a comprehensive system that covers all the energy use, was really important. So we were given the task of finding a system that fits, and not only does it fit the energy use and the demands, also it's easy to use and the customer's going to enjoy using it, because this is a really key feature. If you've got something that's just on the wall, you never have to look at it, that's fine, but also you've got a lot of kit. These gadgets are really cool and it's nice to have the apps and things like that to really make use of it. So when Dan first came to us and inquired about having the system fitted, he said to us he'd been struggling to find an installer wanting to take this type of project on. I think he'd had quotes off a few people and they'd either been out and then not been back to him, or they'd done a rooftop survey and they'd not even been out to the property. So we came out and we had a good look at what was needed on the system, and we could immediately see that the main property itself was not going to be suitable to have any solar on. And we were able to design a system that suited what the customer wanted in terms of the roof space available, the battery system they wanted, the EV charging they've got, and have something that all work together. In addition, this property is a tricky property for solar. It's a large roof on the main house, but it's interrupted with windows. There's Velux windows, there's a dormer on the bungalow, and there's also a large extension at the rear with lots of roof lights in the extension, all that restrict access to the main roof. So while it seems at first like it's a large roof, you could only get maybe half a dozen panels up there, maybe as many as 10, but it wasn't going to be ever a large system on the main house. Now, when you've got an electric car, you've got the capability to electric hot water, and you've got a growing family who's got higher energy needs, you're going to want to maximise the roof as best you can. Now, the way we were able to do that here was utilising the workshop that's at the bottom of the garden. This is a large south-facing roof, and we were able to design a system that went on the workshop at the bottom of the garden while still having the batteries in the house to enable battery backup when we go off-grid in the event of a power cut. So these are all features that we wanted to bring to the installation, and kind of all these moving parts were tricky to make a good design for. However, we were able to come out, speak to the customer about what they wanted, overcome these obstacles and design a system that suited. Now, the first system that we recommended was actually a lot smaller than this system. We were going to suggest putting in solar PV on the workshop with batteries down at the workshop, keeping it all self-contained. It would have been a cheaper system for the customer, it would have been less hassle for them to install, However, after some backwards and forwards, various different options on the design, we soon found out that more features is better. Using the MyEnergi system to integrate the charger and the hot water system was really important to the customer. Also, wanting access to data from the solar was important as well. So we ended up with SolarEdge and MyEnergi, and we're going to go into why we use two different types of system for that. We're also going to talk about the advantage of doing that over just sticking with one MyEnergi system, and we'll talk about that later in the video. So behind me here is where the solar panels are fitted. They're actually on the rear face of this building. It's all south facing at the back, so it's a really good spot for them. There were a few challenges in getting the install on here, as we're going to discuss later in the video. The distance from the house was one. Also, the fact that the kit on the roof is separate to the batteries, but none of it was insurmountable. So one of the challenges we had with the building itself was it was a metal roof. It's not the typical type domestic solar installation where you're pushing up your tile, you're fitting your roof hook to the rafter. This was actually a tin roof similar to what you get on a commercial premises. It's pressed to look like a roof tile, but they're actually tin sheets. So we ended up speaking to our manufacturers to find the best installation method for this roof. And we found a system from kWh, which is the usual manufacturer we fit anyway. It was just a different product that they supplied. This meant the 22 panels were able to go on the back face of the workshop, no problem at all. It's a really nice south-facing roof, so we've got all that space to use and we've got as many panels on there as we possibly could. So the panels we used were JA Solar. So JA Solar is our go-to panel. The vast majority of our installs are JA Solar. We had 8.6 kilowatts of DC power on the roof from 22 panels. These are all black panels as well, so they look really smart on the roof. And with it being a dark roof tile, the panels on the backside really blend in with the roof, and it looks fantastic when you're seeing that overhead shot. And it's almost a shame you can't be sitting in the bedroom window looking out at them. It's such a nice install. So this was the workshop. Like I say, a couple of challenges, but nothing we couldn't sort out. So let's go inside and I'm going to show you the SolarEdge inverters and what we had to do to get that power from the roof and into the house. So if you know anything about the MyEnergi system, you'll know that the battery itself has got capabilities to run the solar. Now we're going to talk about that in detail later in the video, but you might be asking why we've got these SolarEdge inverters behind me. And the reason for that is the array on the roof of this property is too big for what the maximum limit of the MyEnergi Libbi is going to be able to take. So these SolarEdge solar inverters, which was going to be one inverter, then we had to change to two. These are controlling the solar. So we've got a traditional solar PV system on the roof of this outbuilding. These two inverters are controlling the 22 panels on the roof, and the SolarEdge energy meter, which is back in the main house, is controlling how they interact and restricting that grid export to just 3.68 kilowatts. We had planned to include a single 8 kilowatt SolarEdge inverter, but then when we went to the network with this and started discussing the requirements of the system and what we was allowed to connect to the network, the DNO actually turned down the G99 application. So a G99 is a letter that we send in. It's got all of our system details and it's asking permission to connect. So the DNO came back and said, we're not going to let you connect that system, but you could have a 7 kilowatt inverter instead. Now, to me, the difference between an 8 kilowatt inverter plus a battery or a 7 kilowatt inverter plus a battery, it's about the same. But for the network, they obviously saw there was some difference. So we went back and said they don't make a 7 kilowatt SolarEdge single inverter, but we could fit two 3.68 kilowatt SolarEdge inverters onto the property. They were happy with that. These inverters are also G98 compliant, so it just fit nicely with the application. They were really happy to let us have these two inverters in. The MyEnergi Libbi, as part of that, was restricted to self-use only. So the Libbi's power will just go into the property. And between the three, that's how we were able to get around the limitations that the DNO had put on us. Quite a lot of backwards and forwards on this, and usually it takes quite a long time, but on this site it was a fairly quick process. What helps is we've got quite a close relationship with the DNOs in our area. Because the majority of our work are in the same regions, we deal with these people on day to day, so when we get a problem, we can actually just get them on the phone and have a chat and find out exactly what it is that's the problem, and how we can best overcome it. And in this situation, the two SolarEdge inverters did the trick. More details about the SolarEdge then. Now, because this is a straightforward solar PV system in terms of panels on the roof, solar inverter here, and then all the power going back towards the house, we could have gone for any type of PV system here. SolarEdge is mostly associated with when you've got shading, the optimizers that go with the SolarEdge inverters are going to be able to counteract the shading. Now, an optimizer is a device that attaches to a solar panel, and it will monitor each individual solar panel in the array and maximize the energy that each panel produces on its own. If there's a massive tree in front of one panel, it would bring down the rest of the array, but with an optimizer, it would just be that one panel that suffers. And SolarEdge spreads that power around and optimizes the system to get the most power available. So this is why normally you'd expect the SolarEdge system to be in place with shading, but that's just not true. It's not a requirement. So with this, we've got no shading. However, we've got a customer who was very interested in data. He was very interested in the graphs, the charts, knowing what the system did. For us, the discussion there of going to SolarEdge and having panel by panel monitoring, it was an easy conversation to have, and it was one that the customer was quite excited about, of being able to see that amount of detail. In addition, you've got a setup like this where you've got these two inverters and it's more flexible. The energy meter can manage the two of them together, and the system all just manages itself. You've not got all these different components for one inverter type, one optimizer type. Having it all managed together was really helpful. Now, with the SolarEdge app, you're going to be able to see what all these inverters are doing. You're going to be able to see what the optimizers are doing panel by panel. You're also going to be able to see whether that's used in the house, in the battery system, or whether it's going out to grid as export. And you're going to be able to see the historical data for that, and you're going to see all your charts and your graphs and all the nice things that people need. And that's all in an app, and it's really easy and user-friendly. So that's why we ended up with the SolarEdge system that we've got here. Okay, so let's just take a bit of a closer look of exactly what's on the wall, and I'll talk through what's installed. So first off, these are the two inverters, as we've already discussed. We've got the export meter, which is going to measure what the SolarEdge inverters are doing in total. These cables go down to the isolators, and these are going to isolate the inverter from the AC side of the grid. And then you've got your DC power, so you've got your DC strings that are coming down here, and these are your DC isolators. This is a wired internet connection. Because we're so far from the house, we're never going to get reliable solid Wi-Fi down here easily. So we've put a wired internet connection in for this. This makes it a lot more reliable, and the internet connection to the inverters is wired all the way back to the house. Rock solid, we're not going to have problems with Wi-Fi dropping off. The only other thing to look at is you've got a data cable here that runs between the inverters and all the way back to the house for the solar energy meter. Now, that's the meter that monitors the grid connection, and it's going to be able to see whether solar's coming in and out of the property and just keep track of what the inverters are doing. So that's the SolarEdge system. Let's go back to the house now and just take a closer look at the MyEnergi system and how the battery system is being managed in the garage, and why, when SolarEdge do make a battery, why we've ended up going for another manufacturers for the battery system. So we've seen the panels and the inverter, so now let's talk about the battery system. And the first thing I want to address is the MyEnergi Libbi, as people might know if you're watching this, is a solar inverter. So this inverter up here has got the capability to charge the batteries from solar and from the grid. But, and this is the key thing to this install, it also has capability to run solar straight into the MyEnergi inverter. Now, on this particular site, there was a couple of reasons why we couldn't do that or didn't want to do that. So reason number one, on the roof, we've got over 8.5 kilowatts of solar. So a single MyEnergi Libbi will not control that much solar in one go. The other reason is we wanted backup power in the house. So we do have backup power wired in. In the event of a grid outage, the Libbi will provide power from the battery and keep these sockets energized. Now, if this Libbi was at the solar array, it wouldn't be able to do this in the house. The customer would have had to go down the garden, plug things in, and it's just not great. So what we wanted was an AC coupled battery in the property, so it can charge from the solar and still discharge the grid. Now, this was one of the key features we spoke about at the design stage, and that's why we ended up with the battery in the house. So when it comes to being a standalone battery system, this is the 5 kilowatt MyEnergi System. They also do the same one in a 3.6. What this means is when you've got your kettle running at 2 kilowatts and you've got maybe a 1 kilowatt base load in the rest of the house, that's 3 kilowatts already. You'd have maybe 600 watts to power any other items. If you've put an EV car on a normal plug in the wall and you run at maybe 10 amps, you're running out of headroom to be able to provide power to the house all at the same time. In the day it's all right because you've got solar at the same time, but at night, once the sun goes down, all you've got is this inverter. No matter how much solar you've had during the day, you're gonna have to draw it from the batteries, and this is like a bottleneck. Now, moving up to the 5 kilowatts just allows a bit more power to come through. Now, there are challenges with that. Network restrictions and things like that means you can't just have a 50 kilowatt inverter, for example. It just can't happen. So the MyEnergi one is a fantastic sized battery to go with the loads that you're going to get in the typical home, a 5 kilowatt inverter. Now, when you move down to battery storage, this can come with just a single unit like this, 5 kilowatt hours. Difference between kilowatts and kilowatt hours is 5 kilowatts is power at once, and kilowatt hours is like energy over time or stored energy. As you can see here, we've actually expanded this. This is up to the full 20 kilowatt hours, which is the maximum that this MyEnergi system will take. You can go further than that, but you'd need multiple MyEnergi systems on site, which is typical on really large systems or 3-phase and things like that. But for the average home, this is a really large system. What it means is you're going to be getting the most of all that solar that comes in, and you've got the flexibility then to decide what you do with that power. If you've got your car at home, you might be charging the car in the middle of the day, making the most of the solar. If your car's not here, you want to store as much of it as possible. So later in the evening, you've got enough stored energy to see you through the night, ready for the solar again the next day to charge it up. In the winter, when your energy is going to be running lower, there's not as much sun, this battery's also got the capability of charging from the grid. With time of use tariffs, such as Octopus Go or Octopus Intelligent, or any of the other providers that provide similar tariffs, you're going to be able to charge at a cheaper energy rate and then use the energy later when the rates would be higher. Now, in an ideal world, your solar and the battery between them are just going to power a massive amount of the home without needing to support it from the grid. But in the winter, when there's hardly any sun, you're going to want to be adding extra power in from the grid, and the battery system is going to manage all of that. So let's just look at the rest of the install that you see on the wall, and I'm going to just talk you through what we've done and why things are there and what each component does as well. So we've already covered the battery. You get a screen on the battery which tells you what it's doing, and you get these nice little LED images, LED lights that are telling you the state of charge and what's going on with the system overall. So as you can see, it's not all quite full. They're all partially charged at the minute. It's morning as we're recording, so they've used energy from the battery overnight, and now they're going to be topping that up during the day. What you can also do with this, if you know it's going to be sunny later in the day and you've got a car sat there with an empty battery, you can put the energy into the car, get it topped up, then you've got that energy coming back into the battery during the day. This is all going to be handled through the MyEnergi app. And the same happens with water heater. Now up here, we have the MyEnergi Eddi, which is the water heater controller. So the way this works is it watches the solar. When there's a surplus, it's going to heat your hot water, and it's going to work exactly the same way as the car charger does. So the Zappi does the same thing. They wait for solar, they try and do their thing, whether that's car charging or heating water, with the surplus from the solar. Now, when you've got a battery, a water heater controller, and an EV all waiting for that solar, you've got a battle on your hands there. So if you had 3 different manufacturers with that, they could all be fighting with each other to try and get priority of who gets what energy at what time. And this is where having a single ecosystem for all the products in your home is going to be a massive advantage, because you can set the priorities in the app. So you can tell the app, we're going to do the battery charging first, and then when that's full, we're going to do the water heater, and then when that's full, we're going to do the car. Now, if your car needs power, you can just open the app up and you can boost, or you can set it as a different priority. So it can sit there waiting for solar, but the Zappi would go first. And then if you know that you need hot water at tea time, you can boost the hot water at tea time. You get power to the hot water, whether it comes from solar, battery or grid, it's just going to boost. Now, in an ideal world, there will be a surplus, so it will use the surplus, but you might find it empties the battery because you just need the energy at the time. And the worst case scenario, if you've used a lot of energy, you'll draw from the grid. But the structure of that and the management of all of that is all from your smartphone app, and it's really simple and easy to use. It's really visual, and you can see exactly what's going on and decide how best to use the energy in your home. So this system, it's going to be the future of home solar. So eventually you look fast forward and you'll see all the manufacturers having systems like this, but who knows how long that's going to take. But MyEnergi they've come to the market and designed with that in mind from the ground up. The Eddi was always meant to interact with your solar. The Zappi then came along and did the same, and now the Libbi's here as well. And that whole home management and ease of use is just going to be the future of solar. And with the MyEnergi system, we've got it right now. And the fact that it interacts with another solar PV system, not its own, is great as well, because you can still use this. If you've got solar at home already and want to add this system, you can add this into an existing, or you can fit it from new, like we have here. So looking at the rest of the install, what we've got here, we've got a controller for the Libbi. This is kind of the brains behind the battery. And then the rest of the kit we've got on the wall is isolators for the system, an isolator for the controller, and then the backup power supply up here, which is the RCD and overcurrent protection for the backup sockets. We like to keep it all, nice and tidy and trunking. On this one, we've got it actually on a stud wall frame, so behind there is all the wiring, keeps it nice and neat. We've put them on fireboards, so the whole install is kind of framed nicely, and there's still a bit of work to do in the garage in terms of, there's a bit of plastering here and there that the customer's doing, but he knows now that this is all self-contained, it's all done, it's all nice and neat, and he's not got any concerns about cables hanging out. And some of the installs you can see where you've got all the flexors between the appliances. We don't do all of that. We try and keep everything nice and neat and tidied away. So we know this system's going to last years and years, and we don't want a problem with the wiring to be something that brings it down. So having it all sort of well presented like this and easy to access makes it really good for future management of the system. So I think that covers everything with the batteries. What I want to do next is just take you around the rest of the system and show you some of the accessories we've fitted. We can take a look at the EV and the water heater, and we can look at the consumer units that we've fitted as well. So we've already had a look around the rest of the system. We've talked about the solar panels, the battery, some of the challenges we had getting the install in. And this is where it all comes back to. So this is the new consumer unit we've installed. And if you look inside, you can see we've got a circuit for the new renewables consumer unit at the workshop end. Also, we've got the Zappi, the Libbi, the Eddi all wired into here. There's a separate circuit for both the Libbi controller, which we saw earlier on the install with the battery, and then the SolarEdge energy meter, which is in this box actually. So that's all tucked away in there. All of this here connects to the main incoming meter supply, which on this property is actually 3-phase. Now, you would have thought with a 3-phase supply, you'd need 3-phase inverters and batteries, but the house is fully single phase. So throughout the whole house, it's all single phase. So this was obviously added at some point to utilize the 3-phase installation. Then in the past, it was just never carried out. So although we've got a 3-phase head, we've only got a single phase installation in the property. So going back to this, the only other thing we do is surge protection on all our installs. It's just a requirement of all new electrical consumer units. So you're going to see this on all our jobs. So the rest of the kit in the garage, we had a big armoured cable, this meaty one here, which had to go all the way down to the workshop. So this went down into a duct and all the way down to the far workshop. Oversized cable to account for the length of the run. On solar circuits, you have tighter tolerances on the volt drop of a circuit. So when there's a resistance on a cable and the voltage could come down due to that resistance, you have to just take into a bit more into account with solar. So you end up with an oversized cable for what you'd actually need. We've got 7.5 kilowatts of solar power on the AC side on them inverters, but we're going to have to allow for much more on the cable size. It's not as simple as like if it was an 8 kilowatt shower down there. It's an entirely different type of installation. So we took all of that into account with this wiring. Now, to get this in and all of this, you know, it looks fairly straightforward now, it's all done and on the wall, but it was a bit of a task to coordinate all this and get it all in one place. But we've managed to do it, and it's really good to have a renewables consumer unit, which is all your new solar kit with the batteries and everything all in one place, rather than trying to cram it into an existing consumer unit in a property, which might already be overloaded and full of circuits. We just come along, we put something new in on every instance. So here we have the main incoming supply to the property, and as you can see, it is 3-phase. However, we're only using the single phase because that's all that's in use in the premises. And up here, right at the top, you can see there's 2 CT clamps. Now these CT clamps are what monitor that incoming supply, and it lets both the Libbi and the SolarEdge inverter see what's going on with everything in the property. What you'll find is behind some of the covers of the installation we've done, there are further CT clamps for the MyEnergi System, which lets it monitor the system at different points. It's going to see what the solar on its own is doing, it's going to see what the battery on its own is doing, it's already going to know what the Zappi and the water heater controller are doing because it talks directly to them. But these CT clamps are integral to the system to be able to make decisions on where the energy goes. So sometimes getting a simple data wire back to your incoming meter can be a challenge, particularly when you've got a workshop which is right down the far end of the garden. So on here we was able to sort that out, energy meters right down here with the incoming supply. So we was able to sort that so the CTs could go on and everything would run smoothly. So that's the system. We've got 22 panels on the roof of the workshop. We've got a 20 kilowatt hour battery in the house. It's all fully managed by those smartphone apps where you can keep track of exactly what your MyEnergi devices are doing and see exactly what each panel is producing on its own. It's a really amazing whole home energy monitoring system, and this family is going to have just the bills, and the transformation in the bills is going to be incredible over years to come. And some key features of this system I just wanted to point out before we go. We've got 8.6 kilowatts of solar power on the roof. That's going to be producing over 8,000 kilowatt hours per year for them to potentially use in the home. Now, from speaking to the customer earlier today, they're saying 75% to 80% of that has been captured already, but this is during the summer when you're going to really struggle to capture all of that and it's going out to export. In the winter, that percentage is going to be even higher. So they're going to be really maximising the returns from the solar that is on the roof. In addition, in the winter, they're going to be able to charge those batteries up at night. So when the sun is like days like today, for weeks on end during the winter, or the summer as it is in Britain at the moment, they're going to be able to use the grid power to charge the batteries and supplement the solar. And the MyEnergi app is going to be able to really help with that and prioritise hot water, EV car charging, and also the power in the rest of the house. It must be a great feeling to know that you can drive around all year round and your car is fully powered by the solar panels on your house. All the home energy needs are covered by the battery. The hot water is powered by the electricity, so the boiler is going to do the heating, but all summer you're not going to need that heating on. And in the winter, depending on your energy usage, electric heaters can supplement that, so it's going to really get that gas usage down as well. You're going to be getting to the point where you can look at moving away from gas heating and onto electricity through the whole home, and having the battery storage, charging at night, charging from the sun, is going to help with all of that. It's a full whole home energy system that's just an incredible lifestyle, an incredible way to live, knowing that all your bills going forward are completely taken care of, and your solar power is just going to be what's running the whole house. So if this sounds like something that you want on your home, feel free to get in touch. You can leave a comment down below if you're watching this video on YouTube or on social media, or you can contact us directly. We're based in Derby, we do cover all of the Midlands, and we go further afield for some projects, but feel free to get in touch. We can always help and advise on your system. Our phone number is 01332 498 130, and you can also email solar@elec-in.co.uk, and we'll be happy to help you with a system like this or any type of solar PV, battery storage, EV and electrical. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you on the next video.